This is definitely interesting. Now, it's something that we expected to see, but I'm not sure we expected to see it this early. What is that? It's Cooper Flagg playing point guard, which he did last night against the Utah Jazz in the Mavericks' third preseason game. Welcome into Mavericks Today by Chat Sports. Jeffrey Cooperstein here, and we're going to break down what all this could mean for the Mavericks moving forward, including a, I would say, rather surprising potential lineup change for the Mavs here as we sit 8 days before the 25-26 NBA season opener against the San Antonio Spurs. We'll hop into everything Cooper Flagg did last night and what he could do here in the future, but I want to hear from you guys to start off today's show. What is your level of excitement for Mavericks basketball this season? Are you at a 10 where you are super excited, you cannot wait for next week, or are you a little more tame where you're at like maybe a 5 or a 6? Let me know down in the comment section, MFFLs, what y'all think about this season for the Dallas Mavericks. So last night's starting 5 looked like this. It was Cooper Flagg playing the 1 alongside Klay Thiompson and PJ Washington at the 2 and 3, and then your front court was Anthony Davis and Dereck Lively. AD had a nice bounce back game last night against Utah, having 25 points. He was good on the boards as well, and after struggling in the second game against the Charlotte Hornets, AD played really well last night. And heading into this game tomorrow against the Los Angeles Lakers, where I think the Mavericks are really going to have a dress rehearsal where these guys are going to play into the third quarter and play as close to normal rotation minutes as possible. Look, I think it's a good sign that AD is rounding into form, but more on this lineup specifically with Flagg at PG. Jason Kidd has kind of mentioned this since Cooper was drafted by the Mavs, that he wants to run a lineup with him at the point guard, with PJ, Klay, and Anthony Davis all on the court together alongside another big man in Lively. So they ran it last night, and just a few minutes ago, I saw a tweet that it looks like they're going to run this same lineup again here against the Los Angeles Lakers. So what does that tell me? Tells me that they're probably going to run this lineup to start the 25-26 season against the San Antonio Spurs. I thought Flagg had a pretty decent game last night. His first ever game, pretty much at any level, playing the point guard spot where he had 11 points. The shot just wasn't falling last night, and we're going to have to live with those games with Cooper this season. I think his shot's going to be pretty inconsistent, and you know what? You're just going to have to take your lumps with him there. But he did have 7 rebounds. He also had 2 steals and 2 blocks apiece to go along with those 11 points, and he also notched 1 assist as well. The only thing that concerns me is the 1 assist, and you're going to need Cooper to basically, and I know we're just looking at the box score here, but you're going to need him to average more than 1 assist a game if he's going to play point guard. And I know this offense is going to be run differently. It's going to be run through your big men, through Dereck Lively, through Anthony Davis and Daniel Gafford when he's on the court. But the problem is AD, a little more effective at the 5. Cooper Flagg, probably more effective at the 3 or the 4, because those are the positions that they are accustomed to playing. And the Mavericks offense just flows so much more with Anthony Davis as the only big man on the court, where he's the only one rolling, as opposed to having Davis and another big man out there, which just kind of clogs up the offense a little bit. If you have Davis and another big man alongside Cooper Flagg playing point guard, my concern is, where are the shots coming from? How are you going to create those shots when you don't really have a true offensive facilitator out there? So Flagg's going to have to learn very quickly how to be an offensive facilitator, which I'm fine with. I mean, Jason Kidd did do this with Giannis when he was in Milwaukee. So there is precedent for J. Kidd doing this and basically just putting the ball in his best player's hands and letting him go make mistakes and figure it out on the fly. I'm cool with that. But I do wonder, what does D'Angelo Russell think about all of this? D'Lo did not play against Utah. I'm not sure if he's going to play or not against Los Angeles, but what does he have to say about Cooper Flagg playing point guard? He signed with the Mavericks on a 2-year contract because he thought he was going to be the starting point guard for this team in the first half of the season when Kyrie was out. Is he just going to play the entire season from the bench? I think that would have surprised D'Angelo Russell if you told him that before he signed with the Mavericks, and I wonder if he would have second-guessed signing with the Mavericks if he was told he was going to be coming off the bench. Just an interesting thought. I hope D'Lo is super bought in and super engaged with this team regardless, because they're going to need him on a frequent basis. He's still going to play a lot of minutes for this team, whether it's starting, whether it's off the bench. And there is some precedent for D'Lo coming off the bench in his career. It really hasn't happened that often, but he has played in 93 games off the bench, which is more than I would have thought, if I'm being honest, for a guy who was drafted very high up in the lottery. And his career stats, as you see on screen right there, 13.5 points, 4 assists, shot 34% from 3. They're not bad stats, and this is no surprise either, when he is a starter, his stats do go up. Like, he averages almost 18 points a night as a starter, shoots a better 3-point percentage as a starter, and it's probably because you're just playing more minutes, you're getting more rhythm, you're getting more volume, and all of that. So all that makes sense. But all this to say, and bring it back to Flagg, is I do think, if I'm reading the tea leaves, that's where the Mavericks really want to go with this season. I think their ideal starting lineup for this year until Kai returns is going to be the one that you saw against Utah, the one that you're going to see against Los Angeles, and the one that I think they're going to start with here in the season and experiment with. I've said it a million times, and I'll say it again. Kid loves to experiment in the first 25, 30 games, and hopefully this is an experiment that works out, because if it doesn't, that means the Mavericks are probably starting off slow, and they're going to be behind the 8 ball when it comes to trying to make the postseason. So I like the idea of playing Flagg at PG, but I also think that if it doesn't work and it's really ugly early, you need to move off from it quickly. I don't think this is a thing where you can stay the course and just kind of let them figure it out. This is something, because winning is so paramount for this team, that if it doesn't work, you got to see that and you got to move on from it. Go to D'Angelo Russell, who you more or less know is a more reliable PG, and figure it out from there. Hopefully J Kidd sees that as well, and he will have not a quick trigger, but hopefully he doesn't have a slow trigger on this one, if that makes sense. But guys, we are just 1 week away from the season starting. And if you want comprehensive, informative, and free Dallas Mavericks content, hit that subscribe button. What are you waiting for at youtube.com/MavsTV? We'll be going live for a few games as well this season. I can't wait to hang out with all the real MFFLs out there. It's going to be a blast. This season is going to be very, very interesting one way or another. Come along for the ride right now. Speaking of the point guard position, Ryan Nembhard had an excellent game for the Mavericks against the Utah Jazz, and man, he is just making Jason Kidd's life a living hell and giving him a decision headache when it comes to Ryan Nembhard. Last night against Utah in 26 minutes, Nembhard notched 12 assists to just 1 turnover. He also had 6 points and 5 boards as well. Someone who's a little bit undersized, I think getting in the rebounding game is important. I think guards in general need to be able to rebound, and that is something, kind of going back to the Flagg discussion, that he's really good at, being a rebounder. And if you're a rebounder from the guard spot, I always think that's important, just because it takes away a step. You don't have to make an outlet pass. You already have the ball in the hand of your guard. So if Nembhard is able to display that along with his ability to distribute, which we know about, by the way, because he led college basketball in assists last season at Gonzaga, this is someone who I think the Mavericks are going to have to play early. Like I said, I think he's going to make Jason Kidd's life very, very difficult to keep him out of the lineup. Remember, he's only able to be active for 50 games because he is on a 2-way deal. I think it might be the first 50 games of the season, if I'm being quite honest with you. And if he continues to play well after that, the Mavericks might have to make a decision on making a trade and clearing a roster spot for Ryan Nembhard. The Mavs are super high on this guy, and we knew that going in, simply because he only played in 3 preseason games, and then summer league games, And then the Mavs said, "Yep, we've seen enough. We know what we have here." Very excited to see what Nembhard's going to bring. By the way, Miles Kelly had a good game as well. So it looks like the Mavs and we're very early here, looks like they potentially struck gold on their 2-way guys. And they still have 1 available spot left. We'll see who that ends up going to. But between Ryan Nembhard and Miles Kelly, I think the Mavs did a really good job of scouting and their foresight department there, analytics department, knowing what guys they wanted to get as UDFAs and going and getting them onto a contract. So good job by the Mavs front office there. Hopefully Nembhard can give them a really much needed boost from the PG spot here in the first half of the season. We will get to the rest of today's show here in just a moment, but we are sponsored by PrizePicks, and you and I make decisions every single day, but on PrizePicks, those right decisions can get you paid. PrizePicks is super easy to play. All you do is pick more or less on at least 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get them right, you can get paid. One of my favorite features on PrizePicks right now is they're the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. If you want to pick more on Cooper Flagg points, rebounds, and assists, or the more on D'Angelo Russell points, assists, and three-pointers made, whatever combination you want, you can put the same player up to 3 times in that same lineup. And if you want to copy my lineups as well, you can follow other players on PrizePicks directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click. Whether it's a friend, celebrity, or just someone whose picks you like, hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on PrizePicks. You can also do season-long basketball projections, which is what I have for you guys right here. I'm going to take the more on Brandon Miller points per game average at 22. Give me the less on Dylan Harper points per game average at 13.2. And then I'm going to take the more on Luka points per game average at 29. So you can copy my picks or make picks of your own. Just please make sure you do it with our friends over at PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. One more time, that's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it is good to be right. It's over. It's over for Jaden Hardy, man. We knew this already, and this preseason is just more confirmation that he has no place in this Mavericks rotation. He frankly has no place on this Mavericks roster, but unfortunately, he does have a place on the Mavericks roster because he is just now in the first year of his new 3-year, $18 million extension. This was a mistake by the Mavericks, and I get why they did it. I get why they signed Hardy to this deal right before last season began, because you thought you could have a tradable asset there. You were trying to protect his trade value. You were trying to kind of reward him for the first decent 2 years of his career that he had. But man, is he a disaster. You know what Hardy is right now. This stat line that you see against what he did against Utah, this is what Jaden Hardy is. I don't think he is going to get any better than he is right now, and he's hit his ceiling. 5 of 15 from the field, 13 points, 3 of 9 from 3. Again, the rebounding number is nice, just 3 assists. What the Mavericks need Jaden Hardy to do, he simply can't. If he could play make, that would be great. If he could be a more efficient scorer, that would be great. But Hardy is just a bucket getter, an inefficient bucket getter. That just is what he is at this point. And I wish the Mavericks had that roster spot open for a guy like Ryan Nembhard, who probably deserves to be on the active roster. Or for another guy who the Mavericks potentially could have signed to be on the active roster. I just don't see Hardy playing a lot in this rotation for Jason Kidd this season. And that's unfortunate because, once again, they signed him to a 3-year contract extension. And the first year of that is this coming season. So after this year, they're still going to have 2 more years left. I think there is little to no chance that Jaden Hardy ends up finishing this contract with the Mavericks, whether it's a trade, whether it's a stretch and waive. I just don't see that happening. And hopefully it's a trade sooner rather than later, maybe at this deadline where they can move off of that contract. But they're only going to be able to do it as a salary dump. They're not going to be able to move Hardy as an asset in a bigger deal to go get a better player. If they could find a trade partner, that would be fantastic. I just don't see that happening with the Mavericks and Jaden Hardy. Let's say the Mavericks need to go find whatever their need is at the trade deadline in order to really put them over the hump this season and really to solidify their spot as contenders in the West. Then maybe they can throw Hardy, include somebody else, and maybe a pick to go get that player. But there is no way you're just going to trade Hardy for a conditional second-round pick. Nobody's going to take him. He is a negative asset at this point, and it's just unfortunate how it's happened. I had high hopes for Jaden after the Mavericks traded up to go get him. I had high hopes for him to be a potential 10-year sixth man in the NBA. I really thought that's what his ceiling was. But unfortunately, I think his ceiling is sort of what we saw against the Utah Jazz. And it is what it is at this point, but don't expect much from Jaden Hardy this season is basically what I'm trying to say. That will do it for today's show, guys. I appreciate you for tuning in to Mavericks Today by Chat Sports. Of course, if anything happens surrounding the Mavericks, we will have you covered. Mavs and Lakers tomorrow night. It's a late tip-off, 9:30 p.m. Central Time, as the Mavs and Lakers do battle at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. We'll have you covered with all things surrounding that, and that is the final preseason game. After that, the regular season begins, just 1 week away. Cannot wait for it to happen. come along for the ride and stay tuned because we have a lot of content coming down the pipeline.